So what was it that you studied?
So, starting out, I have my bachelor's in social work.
About social work, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, because I mean, in that whole, it was literally one breath, but in that whole breath, you mentioned that, was about, you also mentioned that your childhood was also traumatic. So, I guess in a way, I'm already understanding why you went into this area. But let's just start from, are you from New York? Where are you from? Let's go back then before you even started studying. Tell us a little bit about growing up.
So, I grew up in Westchester County, right outside the city. I moved to the city when I was 18, so I've been here for a minute, but I grew up close by.
Okay. And so obviously you finished school. You, yeah, you going into social work, was that not a bit conflicting for you? Not conflicting, but wasn't that quite close to home in a way? What did you not find that a little bit vulnerable to do that? I mean, I'm just now packing in. You've just thrown a lot in straight away, so I can imagine you must have been vulnerable to go straight into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, I think most people who go into these professions do have, are dealing with their own trauma, right? So the first few years that I was in social work, I cried almost every day. I was in therapy, so I
Mm,
started young. A lot of people leave the field because it's too much. That's a big challenge when you're in this field. You build up resilience, and over, after a number of years, you
mm,
get much stronger and much able to handle emotions. So it's a very different later on in your career. But sure, I mean, I think anybody would be vulnerable when you're face to face with some of the
yeah,
situations
yeah,
that were. But yeah, it was, but at the same time, it was healing because it helped me to process, my own pain, and it was something I was very much drawn to. Um, I've always lived in the emotional realm and the unconscious realm, so you know, going into a more white collar kind of situation wouldn't have resonated with me at all. I mean, I did do temp work and things like that. I've done many, many different jobs, and I was very traumatized, much more traumatized in corporate environments where everybody was
mm,
so cut off and cold. And I mean, I think things have changed a little, but back then, corporate environments were so, so cold,
mm,
and it was before Me Too, so there was a lot of being touched and all kind of stuff, and I found that to be much more traumatizing than
yeah,
working with people in pain. Yeah.
yeah. And Leslie, obviously, because you're in this field, I mean, and you do go straight in with the fact that you had a traumatizing youth. And I mean, are you okay to share this with us? Usually, when I'm in conversation with people, that sometimes comes in or not, but it's not because we speaking. I'm not calling someone because they're talking about this, but in a way, it's like a big white elephant now because you mentioned it. So in a way, do you want to share that with us so we understand the framework of like from where you're actually trying to help the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, there's three of us in a row. So I have a sister 1 year older, sister's 2 years older, and my mother never really wanted to have children. She
Mm,
wanted a career. It was a different time. She graduated, she put herself through law school, working full time, and she graduated at 28 years old with a law degree. And that was a few years before Ruth Bader Ginsburg graduated. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg from Harvard couldn't even get a job when she got out.
yeah.
So it was a time when, most women didn't have the choice. They basically had to get married and have children and be a housewife.
Mm,
And she wasn't really built for that. So I was her third in a row. My father obviously wanted to have a lot of children, and she went in and out of all. She had a lot of mental health challenges. She was extremely functional and brilliant, but had a lot of mental health challenges. So by her own admission, she tried to kill me a number of times when I was an infant, and I don't hold it. She took her life many years ago, 30 decades ago. So, um, postpartum depression isn't talked about very much, but it's a very real thing.
Mm.
And, I mean, of course, I don't specifically remember her doing that, but we had an extraordinarily violent emotional relationship. And, I'm sure it had a lot to do with that being still in my body and my soul.
Mm.
Um, I was always able to do well in school, but I completely put up a wall to my own emotions and anything with my inner self, and I had no idea of my own thoughts. I couldn't. My own thoughts and feelings were gone pretty much and completely annihilated, but I could still function and be popular and work. Then I started training in acting in my early 20s, and emotions were so frightening. It was like I'd get up and I'd start having panic attacks when emotions would start coming out. And my acting teacher said, "You're the most troubled," what did he say? Challenged amateur he'd ever seen in his life, because yeah, that's basically why I studied acting. Unconsciously, I was drawn to it because not necessarily that I really wanted to be an actress,
Mm.
but I didn't know how to get in touch with my emotions or have them or anything, and therapy as well. And it took many, many, many years for me to be able to have my feelings. It took
Yeah.
decades, and the terror was there for a very long time. It just all seemed so incredibly dangerous to me to have any of my own real feelings.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people who grow up in trauma experience that disassociation from themselves almost totally. I think a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol and
Mm.
different things because that's so unbearable, such an unbearable way to live.
Mm.
So when you asked me why I went into social work, I mean, I think also seeing other people in these situations brought up a lot of pain and feelings, and I couldn't have them for myself, but I could have them for other people. Still, I was still able to do that. A lot
Mm.
of people actually cut off both. They can't have their own, and they can't feel for other people either. That happens to a lot of people who are traumatized. But for some reason, I was still able to feel for other people.